Hello and welcome. In this video, I'm going to talk about two things. First, it's pretty important when you are working with actions that you don't always have to press a button to trigger an action. Sometimes you would like an action to run for you or run whenever you mean it to. So time the actual, schedule the actual even. So in this video, we're going to look at scheduling actions. And we're also going to look at the log message step. Sometimes you would like to keep an eye on what is happening within an action. So let's dive into it. So the first thing I would like to do, looking at scheduling and logging, is we're first gonna set it up manually so that we know how the log message actually works. I'm going to do this with the send email action, because this is an action that we can basically trigger as many times as we want, and we do not rely on updating a record or creating a record. We can always send out emails. You can also do this for the generate PDF step, for example. You can always generate PDFs and see if it works. So, first things first. We already have the log message step in our application. I would like to immediately give you one best practice for the log message step. Use this solely when building and trying and testing. But the moment your application runs in a live environment, make sure that you take away the log message step from the action flows. The reason is, it is a little bit of extra load you are putting on your action flow, and you basically only want this to test if your actions are doing what you expect them to do. So in this case, I am going to add the log message step at the end of my action. So what my log message step can do is it can look at what happens prior to my action, and it can show some of that information in our logging view. So I'm going to say I would like to debug with this log message step, and I would like to show two things in my logs whenever I'm debugging. I would like to check for the information. The first thing I would like to look into is the name of the project. So whenever I'm running an action and if something breaks, maybe I'm giving in the wrong project or something like that, I would like to have the project name appear in my logs, just so that I'm aware, okay, everything from the start is going through correctly. The second thing I would like to parse through, so I pressed save here just to make sure that I don't lose it if I open up the email event, is the email file. And I'm going to set the email file, I'm going to give that a name, call it as mail, so make sure that the email file has a name. And then I'm also showing that email file in my debugging, calling it the mail key. So save. This way, after I've ran the action, I can actually see like, okay, so what is exactly that project name that has been parsed through, and what is exactly that email name? It doesn't sound too exciting when you do it only on something that has one step, but imagine you're doing all kinds of data calculations, and halfway through you would like to know what the result is of a calculation that you are dealing with later up in the action flow. Well, what you can do is you can put that log message in between those action steps and read whatever the status of that value is at that moment. So save it, just making sure that it's there. And I am going to go into my project detail page, or at least in my application, and I'm going to test out if that logging actually works. So let's actually open up a project. So there we go, project números 2. Send the status email. Well, it's not important if the email arrives right now. We're just testing out the logging. So opening up our logs. We can do that in our tools section. And as you can see all kinds of actions that have been running. However, right now, we even have a debugging log level. And as you can see, it gives us the information we've asked for. The action with action ID, a number. Right now, it gives me a project name. Proyectos, números 2, whatever. And well, that is what we've asked for, so that's good. And it also gives me the complete message that I was about to email. Well, that's great, because now we know that if we want to log something, we can do that, and then we can see the results here in our email logs. Now that we know that our email is logged, I would like to test out a second thing, and that is what I was talking about at the beginning of the video, scheduling our actions. We can press the send mail button every single time, but that is just tedious. It takes a long time, and sometimes I would like, you know what if I want to send a status reminder to the manager of the project every morning, just making sure that the manager of the project is aware of what is going on around him. Well, we can do that in the action settings, and there is a nice tab called scheduling. So let's look into how you can schedule an action. We can simply turn it on, and you would almost say like, okay, cool, so now it's scheduled. However, we also need to look at cron syntax. Cron syntax is the syntax we use to say how often or when we would like to send or schedule that action. So when do we want that action to run, to start? So we can press the link, check the cron formatting, and it opens up a nice new tab for Croniter. crontab.guru is the website. And here you can play around and set some cron expressions. So what you can do is you can set up, for example, the star, and here you say, at every minute past hour 4, I would like something to happen. Well, in this case, the something that happens is it triggers our action. You can say it needs to happen on a monthly basis, on a daily basis. It needs to happen multiple times an hour. So what you can say, for example, I want this to send at minute 30. So at every minute from minute 30 through minute 50, I want to send something. With a comma, you can say, I want it to happen at minute 30 and minute 50. Or in case, or the case we were using, I'd say, I would like to send an email to my manager every morning before he wakes up, so he can wake up to a lovely bunch of emails of project statuses, because that is important, right? So, well, as you can see, it also mentions when the next trigger is going to happen. Right now, I'm going to make sure that the next trigger is going to happen pretty soon. So at minute 5, that's pretty soon for me. And I'm going to copy that, go back to my cron, and there I'm going to save it. And now, well, I'm going back to the logs, and well, I'm waiting. However, I'm going to get back to you the moment the action is run, and then it should say something like 12:05, maybe a couple milliseconds because of the delay in triggering an action, but then it has triggered on its own. It has been 05, and as you can see, the couple of things we've asked for has happened. The scheduled action has started at 05, and it logged the information we needed to know. And luckily, this is also why we use the log. I forgot to give an idea with the action flow, because normally when we press the button in our page builder detail page, we also provide the ID of the detail page to our action flow. So it knows immediately, like, oh, we're sending information from this project to that person. But since we are scheduling something, we also need to provide that ID ourselves. So luckily it did let us know that there was an error. So we can look into that, we can debug that using this log message step. And after, well, fixing that, we can continue development. So you now know how to schedule your actions. You know how to set up that log step, and well, why you would want to read it, because in this case it says error while executing scheduled action in fields ID. The reason is there was no ID. So we now know what we need to fix, and we can continue on to the next advanced action step courses. So let's go, and see you in the next video.